Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I have to apologize that I'm not able to join you this afternoon, but I had an accident and the doctor does not allow me to travel for a while. That's the reason why I'm addressing you using modern ways of communication. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I want to share some of my concerns with you with respect to the European antitrust policy. We certainly agree that antitrust policy is a must in a market economy, and it is true that antitrust policy is a strong competence of the European Commission since the very beginning of the whole process of European integration. I would also dare to say that for the Commission, antitrust policy or competition policy is a real crown jewel. The Commission has prerogatives in this field which are unique in the world. Unfortunately, recent developments tell us that we have to discuss some very basic problems, very fundamental problems. The first problem is the whole structure of decision-making in European cartel cases. Again, I would like to begin by saying that we cannot accept cartel infringements in our economies, and certainly a policy of deterrence is appropriate. But the question here is whether the basic principles of the rule of law, in particular the separation of powers, judiciary and executive powers, whether this must be respected at the European level or not. My view is it should be respected. But the reality is that in cartel cases, the Commission is playing the role of the investigator, the prosecutor, and finally even the judge. The Commission begins procedures. It's a decision of the competent authority, DG Competition. These people make a decision whether the procedure will be opened or not. They investigate the whole case, make their assessment, and will finally bring a proposal to fine a company to the College of Commissioners. The College of Commissioners is a political body. Of course, in the European Treaty, it is stipulated that the Commission is independent, but that does not mean that it is free of political considerations. And I can tell you from my experience that political influence is always present when the College of Commissioners has to take a decision. Otherwise, it would be completely unnatural. So I wonder whether it would be more in accordance with the principle of the rule of law if we would have a separation here and following the model of some important member states, in particular the German model, where infringements of cartels are the responsibility, to investigate them is the responsibility of an independent authority, and there is no political influence possible as far as the decision-making is concerned. This is a long-standing demand, by the way, of the European Parliament and some of the European governments, in particular the German government, but so far attempts failed to take that into account when treaty negotiations were started. But this is a matter that must remain on the table. The second issue I want to discuss is the question of setting the fine. We see a clear development here over the last couple of years. The rise of fines is really excessive. And what is the reason for that? The reason is that the Commission has decided that internationally operating companies are fully responsible for the wrongdoings of affiliated companies, daughter companies, even if they do not influence the daily operations of such a company. The result is that the base for setting the fine is the global turnover of the mother company in the last year of the infringement. The rule is that a fine can be up to 10% of the turnover, but there is no way for a company to get information about the considerations of the Commission, how to decide which fine is appropriate between 1%, let us say, or 10%. In my view, it is absolutely necessary to have new rules here which create binding guidelines, binding rules for the Commission, how to set the fine and to make it transparent to the public and to the company that is in the infringement procedure. I can tell you from my experience that this decision, which fine is appropriate, is formally taken by the College of Commissioners, but only formally. In reality, most of the commissioners are not involved and are not familiar with the case. The first time they hear about it is when the proposal to set a fine is presented, sometimes only a couple of hours before a decision has to be taken. In theory, the Commission is an independent institution, that's true, and it's very important that the Commission is politically independent, but it is a political body, and I do not think that it's appropriate that a political body makes decisions of that kind. In my view, that has to be changed. And there's a third element which I would like to mention here. This is a question of compliance. Compliance is a big issue for European and international companies since the 10 or 15 years. It is now, for major companies, a must to have state-of-the-art compliance systems in place. And in my view, it makes a difference whether a company has a state-of-the-art compliance system and makes every effort to guarantee that the rules are respected, or whether the management of a company does not care. In the present practice, it makes no difference. If the employees of a company infringe the competition rules, the company will be held responsible regardless whether it has compliance systems, working compliance systems in place or not. I'm not asking for a kind of trade-off here, but what I think would be important is to incorporate the element of compliance in the rules of setting the fines. I would like to mention two other points which give reason to concern. The first is the question of private compensation for damages. I would agree that it's difficult to deny that private compensation is justified, but the question is how it can be done without punishing a company twice. I think there is justified concern that the present policy may lead to a situation where the private compensation comes on top of the fine that is already established by the authority. And this is exactly what the Commission is saying. The Commission is saying that it is very much in favor of private litigation, but as a follow-up procedure, that private claims for compensation might be based, shall be based, on the established infringement, established, of course, by the authority. Again, we have a lack of clear ruling here. And the final point I would like to make is that without wanting to criticize the European courts in an appropriate way, I find it a little bit odd that in competition cases the European Court normally does not examine the facts of the case, but refrains itself to mainly procedural questions. I think it is important, again, as an implementation of the rule of law, that companies have a right in a court case to present the case, to present their views, and to can get a decision of the court that is based on the real facts. Ladies and gentlemen, this is some food for thought. It will be very, very difficult to achieve changes here, because we can be sure that the Commission will defend the present policies and the present institutional setup as much as it can. And I would like to say that I do not try to attack my former colleagues here. This was my opinion already when I was, as a Commissioner of Industry, very often involved in those cases, and I felt very, very uncomfortable with the situation that I have described, that there was no clear separation of power. That is what I want to achieve, and if you can support me in that, I would be very grateful. Thank you very much.